I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you.
And welcome into Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. A couple of mistakes I'd like to clean up to start the show. Apparently, my buddy Dan, always quick to point out my mistakes, said that on the last show I mixed up quite a few names. I apologize to you guys for mixing up those names. I have no excuse. I hope that I will do better today. I also got a message from a Juckeye in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Now, he said some nice things about the show and that it was nice being stuck with all these Penn State fans to get to come home and watch Juck on Bucks to clear his mind of all the idiocy around him. But my idiocy is that I didn't know people lived in Gettysburg. I thought Gettysburg was just like the scene of the battle, and like we just called this area Gettysburg, where the battle was. I had no idea. So I feel like an idiot saying that, but yeah, that's awesome. You learn something every day. Also, I tried to make a big to-do the other day, quite embarrassing. I had seen other people on YouTube do this, but they would say, click the box right here to go to this video that I made. So I tried to do it, and I was real cocky about it, thought that I nailed it. I was sure that I had it right. And then you guys let me know in the comments that no, it in fact was not there. And I looked like an idiot. So again, sorry about that. There's more. There's one more. Blaine Bradford. Now, you guys, if you've been around a long time, you know that when I reference a player's rankings, I'm always just to make it nice and clean and simple. When I reference a ranking, I'm always ranking the 24/7 composite. So it's just nice and clean. If I'm using a different ranking, I will specify. But if I just give a ranking, it's always the 24/7 composite. So I made this graphic to show the high-level talent in the Ohio State secondary should the Buckeyes be able to bring in Braylon Womack in addition to Justice Fitzpatrick this class, how much it would even raise more. And I put Blaine Bradford at 7. Now, Blaine Bradford was 7 in the 247 internal rankings, but number 2 in the composite. So I appreciate our buddy for pointing that out. So I have remade that graphic, and here's how it looks now. And take a look at this, man. This is some ridiculous talent. Could be the most talented secondary in the history of Ohio State, on paper coming in anyway. And we'll see how it plays out on the field. Hopefully the Buckeyes can land Womack, which I think is more likely than Justice Fitzpatrick at this point. But we will unveil the mock class here coming up soon. Now, yesterday, I did my favorite running backs from the eras of the coaches that I remember as an Ohio State fan. I was born and raised a little bit during the Earl Bruce era, but I don't so much remember that. I grew up during Cooper. So I've got Cooper, Tress, Urban, and Day memories. And I'm kind of curious to know, as we talk about those coaches, who would you pick right now if you could pluck one of those guys out of their prime right now and stick them at Ohio State? Obviously, we've had a ton of changes in college football, so we're going to assume that they've kind of, been up to date on all the changes. We'll say they were coaching somewhere else or something, but they're in their prime, and you can pluck one and drop them into Ohio State right now. Cooper, Tressel, Urban, or Ryan Day. They've all got some pluses and minuses. I think that Ryan Day has done a tremendous job attacking the changes in college football, adjusted very, very well. I think he's probably, just personality-wise, better suited for the twists and turns of that than either Tressel or Urban. It is interesting to me. We talked about it yesterday. Ryan Day now entering what would be Urban's last year in his career, year number 7. Those guys were certainly all viewed differently coming into the job. You had Tressel, who was kind of a no-name to a lot of people, and like, what the hell are we talking about? We're going to hire a Youngstown State coach, but quickly earned his stripes, obviously, with the 310 days speech that got us all jazzed, then going and actually doing it on the field, then a national championship year 2. And like, he's already a legend in his 3rd year. Urban comes in as a 2-time national champion who was responsible for the most embarrassing loss we've ever had. And it was like a conquering hero coming home. And then you got Ryan Day, who, it just was totally different. And he's just now a lot of people coming around to having, kind of the warm and fuzzy feelings about, yeah, this is my coach, like confident, like that kind of feeling about him. He also just isn't, when you look at Tress, very grandfatherly, which inspires some of those feelings. When you look at Urban, a badass, that really inspires those feelings. And Day, I guess you can perceive him, some people will perceive him as kind of soft. And certainly that's the tag from the people from outside. I think he's just a smart, regular dude. And I don't think regular dudes do well in roles like that, from like the way they're perceived. Regular dudes don't get perceived well because the college football coach, just the role, the college football coach has always been so different in all of sport. It's not like the NFL head coach. It's not like the NBA coach. The college football coach, more than any coach anywhere, represents that program in just a totally different way. We look at the legendary college football coaches, and it's just a different kind of job. And I think that there is something to the way we perceive them based on their personality types is very different. And I think that Day, just being a regular kind of dude with little kids and a family, it doesn't inspire the same kind of emotion that a guy like Urban does. Yeah, he's a psycho, he's a maniac, but that's our psycho, and he's scared, everybody else, and they all hate him and we love it. Or Tress, who's just, yeah, man, the guy's the senator. Look at that guy. It looks like the president running our football team, and he sounds like that. And Day's just a regular dude. He just could be any one of us, it feels like. And that's like, yeah, I don't want any one of us. I want someone special. So I think there's a little bit of that kept people from really embracing Day a ton. Obviously, now that he's a national champion, things are different. Now you look at him, he's a regular guy that's also can succeed at the highest level. And then you start looking at all the other things that he's accomplished and roll that into the national championship. And the resume is unbelievable. But we've been incredibly fortunate to have 4, not just 3, 4 coaches in a row at the program that has elevated the program in their own ways. When we look from Cooper, then Tress, then Urban, then Day, each has added something and not really dropped back, except for Day with the rivalry. But everybody has added something to the program. Cooper totally revitalized the program, got money invested back into the program, facilities updated, and compiled some of the most talented teams we've ever seen at Ohio State. Tressel, of course, elevates the rivalry immediately, elevates putting the Buckeyes back in a national championship game, a national champion win, goes to 2 more national championship games in his career, and really gets off the 20th century starting on the right foot with Ohio State competing every single year at the highest level in the BCS. And then you got Urban, who comes in, another national championship, a different kind of swagger, changes the recruiting footprint to a national footprint, which is what we're currently at now. And I think Day has almost perfected it. There are some things that they go about things in a way at home that bother me, but he's taken Urban's kind of philosophy. A lot of this thanks to Pantone still being there throughout both regimes, and put some little tweaks on it, made it better. He cleaned up losing to inferior teams. He doesn't do that. Urban, got caught a couple times like that, derailed some of his best teams. Urban Meyer in the 12-team playoff, if that was the system for his tenure, without a doubt, I think at least one more championship, without a doubt. But this 12-team system, perfect for Urban. The 4-team, perfect for Day. I think the Day could totally take advantage of that. But now that we're in 12 or 16, Urban would be the guy. But it is interesting to sit and kick around when we talk about these guys, like their pluses, their minuses. And if you had to pick one, just one in their prime right now to lead the program, I want to say I'd pick Jim Tressel. It could be my personal attachment to the way I feel about him. I just admire him so much as a man. Of course, there are some things that really bother me, man. The punts, the way that he always needed to it just felt like he always wanted to keep a game close. Never wanted to put the pedal to the metal and blow people out of the game. And that entire philosophy is kind of like is who he is as a coach. That's not changing. And I just don't know that I could deal with that. My brother said Urban. He'd pick Urban because it's just win at all costs. I don't care. I'm going to win. Don't care who I piss off. I don't know that's for me, man. I kind of like a balance between Tressel and Urban, and I kind of find that balance to be Day. So then you got the rivalry deal with Day and the fact that is clearly in his head. I think that he's going to clean that up this year. We'll see if he does. For now, I'm going to stick with Tressel. If Day wins this year in Ann Arbor, I think he might be my pick. Yesterday, I did my favorite running backs through each coach's era that I remember. Very vague memories of Earl Bruce, but Cooper, I grew up during. And for Cooper, it was Eddie. When we get to Tressel, for me, it was Beanie Wells. Then we go to Urban, and it was without a doubt Carlos Hyde. Just love that dude. Then we get to Day, and it's Travion Henderson. So that's my list. You guys added a lot of comments to that, and I appreciate that. One of the comments I got was, let's do corners. So I said, sure, we'll do corners, but I got to preface this with this is my least favorite position on the football field. In fact, the ones that, like, if you ask me if you could play any position on the football team, corner is dead last for me. It's just my least favorite position. You're running around chasing a guy who rarely gets the ball thrown to him. The corners, and you'll see the ones that I gravitate towards are the ones who play more like a safety. Like, those are the ones I'm even drawn towards. It just doesn't excite me one bit. But I do have a very definitive list, and it starts obviously with another Akron dude, but that's not why, though I did watch him play in high school, Antoine Winfield. What saddens me is Antoine Winfield today would play in Akron City Schools, not sniff an offer from Ohio State, not sniff it as a 5'9" cornerback. Hell, he might have had a hard time getting an offer from Wisconsin this day and age as a 5'9" corner. And it's not like he went to Ohio State and played on some bum teams. Those teams were loaded. Those secondaries were loaded. And he wouldn't get an offer. And we know this because his kid didn't get an offer. And that was 10 years ago. So I played this hit yesterday on Twitter that I ran across from the Akron City series. This is the Garfield Rams versus the Akron East Dragons. How cool is that? Used to be the Akron East Orientals, and they changed it to the Dragons. Boy, you wouldn't want to see their logo. The Orientals, not the Dragons. But I really loved Sean Springs as well from that era, but not my favorite. It was definitely Antoine. Guessing that's most of yours as well. In the Tressel era, and I know most of you are going to say Dustin Fox. Dustin Fox, man, he got a lot of crap, man. A lot of hate. Even in 2002, I remember that season going on. Lots of hate for Dustin Fox. He was frustrating at times, but like Antoine, he played a lot like a safety. 6 tackles a game, which is a ton for a corner. He also averaged 1 pass breakup a game, which, to put that in context, guys like Nate Clements, 0.75, Ahmed Plummer, 0.75, Jeff Okudah, 0.64. Now, they were getting the ball thrown their direction less than Dustin Fox, but the numbers, from the numbers angle, he was not bad. Some of you will say Malcolm Jenkins for the Tressel era. Some of you will say Chris Gamble, I'm sure. For me, Will Allen. Will Allen was my favorite. He was that dude to me. We're talking a corner who averaged 6.5 tackles a game. And like I said, I gravitate more towards the physical corners. Will was a dude. He had a great NFL career. Just loved him. When we move up to the Urban era, this is a layup for me, and I suppose most of you as well. Denzel Ward. We're talking about a kid from Macedonia who played for the Buckeyes and then goes up to play for the Browns. I mean, this guy's lived my dream. Another guy, not the biggest, but an absolute hammer and a coverage demon as well. And that'll take us to the Ryan Day era, which I don't know. I probably would have bet anything on Jeff Okudah being a superstar in the NFL. And that is still one of the weirder ones to me that did not happen. But Jeff Okudah was, the guy just had it all at Ohio State. I just loved him from the time we got that commitment. It was really shocking to me to get such a high level DB out of Texas. to the time he left Ohio State as he's a top 5 draft pick. Dude was just amazing. And that was a real surprise. So to review, under Coop, it's Antoine. Under Tress, Will Allen. Urban, Denzel Ward. And under Day, Jeff Okudah. And that is my cornerback list. Can't wait to hear yours. All right, let's get to some Juckeye recruiting news of the day. Richie Wesley. You guys remember Richie. Beast defensive end from California. He was the number 1 edge in 2027. Reclassified to 2026. I cannot stand this reclassification trend. This dude's 16 years old, man. So he accelerates his visits, comes to Ohio State, one of his stops, and it seemed to go really good. And then out of nowhere, like a week later, he posts a video. And I played it here on the show. The video, Richie is laying poolside, shirtless with nothing but compression shorts on.
Well, all the schools, they all show me, types of love, but there's one school, show me the most love, and, I guess it's where I'm going. You ready, Coach?
Let's get it.
Woo!
It's time, baby.
Let's go.
As you know, a lot of schools been showing me a lot of love, but the one that's been showing me the most love, I guess I'm going to go there. Camera pans to the left, showing a Dan Lanning ripping his shirt off, and they run and jump into the pool together. And then Dan Lanning gets up, tries to yell something manly to make this a little less awkward, but the damage has been done. We got a grown man jumping in the pool with a 16-year-old, totally debasing himself. But he's a 5-star, and Dan will do whatever it takes for a 5-star. I appreciate a guy who's willing to go all in for something he really wants, even if it means humiliating himself and looking incredibly cringy and creepy. Dan does things most coaches won't do. I see recruits all the time. Every time they go out to Oregon, Dan drives them around in his Jeep, blasts the music that the youngsters are listening to, and they record a selfie with themselves and cool coach Dan Lanning. That's his shtick. That's his thing, man. He's the cool guy. So congratulations to Dan. You get the kid. You're the coolest. Well, that only works if you get the kid. Because an even more embarrassing thing happened yesterday morning when all of a sudden it circulated that Richie Wesley was going to be taking official visits to Ohio State, Texas A&M, as well as Oregon. And everybody starts clowning Dan Lanning, and it was hysterical. Matter of fact, one of our Duckeyes sent this message on the comments section. Dan Lanning decides to jump in the pool for a kid's commitment, and a few weeks later, he schedules OVs to the team that crushed the Duck season. Commitments are laughable without shutting it down, and he's absolutely right. He's totally right. Then, at about 9:30 p.m., I get a message from my buddy Dan, the same one in the beginning of the show, who tells me about my screw-ups. And he says, Richie Wesley has totally decommitted from Oregon. So we go from the pool to the commitment to official visits announced to a decommitment in the matter of like a week and a half, man. A week and a half. And part of me thinks this is a Ryan Day plant. Ryan Day will never stop embarrassing Dan Lanning because of the way Dan Lanning ran around after breaking the rules with the 12 men on the field like he was a genius and saying, we practice situational football, thinking he was some sort of genius. Ryan Day clowns him in the Rose Bowl, clowns him with the plant, Richie Wesley. Now, do the Buckeyes have a shot at Richie Wesley? Seriously? No, they don't. He is ranked the number 2 edge rusher in the country. It is illegal for Larry Johnson to sign a kid ranked that high post 2021. We all know that. But one kid who it is legal for him to sign is coming into town this weekend. In a big surprise, Kari Wilder chose to come this weekend for his official visits, which means he'll be in town with Luke Waffle, Jake Krull, Cam Brickle, Preston Carey, a whole slew of stud defensive linemen. And you know I love Carey. Carey has got official schedule with UCLA, with Washington, so a couple of the Big Ten West programs. But Oregon and SC did not get in on him, or they apparently missed him, like the recruiting services did, quite honestly. Notre Dame did not. So we've got 2 Midwest powers, and Notre Dame's recruiting has gone up a ton over Marcus, or with Marcus. They've got the number 2 edge rusher in the country per On3's rankings. Kid's a total stud, and they will be going after Kari Wilder, who I really want in the Buckeyes class. So we'll see what happens here. He'll be in town this weekend. I think he's pretty enamored with Ohio State. I really do. And of course, I'm enamored with him, and his film is legit. Dude's a total stud. Probably projects out to being a 3 tech. Little bit of a bigger body, and he looks to, he holds a little bit of chunk on him. Not a super lean kid, and I think he'll be a really good 3 tech. So excited about his visit. And that will do us for our recruiting news of the day.
Oh, didn't see you there.
What 10 players on the 2026 Buckeyes team do you think it is most crucial that they have a breakout performance this year, that they have a great season? Who would you come up with? I was thinking about one guy in particular, and I was thinking how important I think it is that he has a great season, that he really owns his role. And then I was thinking about somebody else, and it was for a totally different reason, but I felt it was equally as important that this particular guy really had a great season. So we've got a list here of guys for various different reasons, but all very, very vital to this team's success that they have a good season. And because it was so many different reasons, it's even hard to describe what this list is. So I'm just going to call it the crucial list. These are the top 10 crucials. My crucial list here, and it starts with Julian Sayin. It is obviously crucial that Julian Sayin has a great season. This is the biggest layup on the list. If Julian Sayin is consistent and learns as the season goes and doesn't turn the ball over, and Ohio State has its running game rolling, by the time we get to the playoffs, we're talking about a guy who is not even going to be a freshman anymore. He's going to be ready to roll. If Julian's wildly inconsistent, if he's a poor decision maker, if he's a turnover machine, he won't even be starting by the time we get to the playoffs. So obviously, Julian Sayin, the most crucial performance here for the team. At number 2, I've got Edric Houston. Edric Houston having a breakout year is so huge. We're talking about Edric playing next to K-Mac. K-Mac, a guy that we all believe is that dude. He's lost some weight, getting ready for the rigors of playing extended snaps. He's not used to it. Now, last year, Ty and Tyleek played 65% of the snaps. But we got to keep in mind, in the big games, they played a higher percentage. In the not so big games, they played a lower percentage. It averages out to 65. What do we really care about? We really care about the big games. Can K-Mac play 80% of the snaps in a big game? Can Edric? How good can Edric be? We've seen promise, but he just moved in there. Now he's going to be a starter. I think that he's got the talent to be a first or second round guy. I think we're going to see a breakout year from him. But it's crucial that he's at least pretty damn good. Because if he's not pretty damn good, you've got K-Mac at the 1, him at the 3, and if he's not pretty damn good, you don't got pretty damn good behind him. And it's going to be really difficult to stop the run if those two starters, and I think we believe K-Mac is that dude, but if Edric isn't also the second part of that pair, Bucks are going to have a rough time stopping the run. And that's why I think he's so crucial. At number 3, it's Caleb Downs. And again, this isn't a best player list. When we look at the defense in 2025, you've got IGB returning at corner, the only other returning starter in the secondary. You got some young dudes, some inexperienced dudes. You got Malik, you got Jalen McClain, you got Jermaine starting. You've got Arvell starting for the first time. You've got an entire defensive line starting for the first time. Caleb, Lorenzo Styles, the unquestioned leader. Great players make the players around them better. And if he needs to have a great season to elevate everybody around him. He needs to be that dude. He needs to do even more than he did last year for this defense to be great. And we'll stick on defense and go over to Jermaine Matthews. Jermaine Matthews has a unique opportunity here. When we look at the defense last year,
How many positions on this 2025 Buckeye team have the opportunity to elevate from last year? Most of them don't have the opportunity to elevate from last year, don't have the opportunity to get better, both individual positions and groups. Does the defensive line have an opportunity to be better than it was last year? No. Does the linebacker group have an opportunity to be better than it was last year? Perhaps, but probably not. Probably be a really great thing if it could elevate to be the same as last year. At corner, with IGB, another year starting under his belt, another year older, and Jermaine Matthews, there's an opportunity for corner to be even better than it was last year. And that's pretty important. If you can, you don't want to drop off a little bit in every group. If you can pick up that corner room and make that even better than it was last year, even if you drop off a little on the defensive line, a little at linebacker, I don't really think you will. Last year, you had a Swiss Army knife on defense in Jordan Hancock. And now you go from him to a guy who's not started in that role, who started his career as a wide receiver, who is a fifth-year senior in Lorenzo Styles. A guy who's been so-so when he's been out there, a guy that coming into the spring, talking to you guys and the way I felt as well, this was the position that a lot of us, Lorenzo was kind of penciled in there. A lot of us were hoping somebody was really going to push him for that role. And it sounds like everybody's really believing in him. He's come around. Well, nobody really pushed. Bryce West looks to be that number 2 guy, and he looked a little lost. Last we saw him out in the spring game in that role. He's not ready. So, number 1, you need Lorenzo to be good. Number 2, you need Lorenzo to not, get that drop off to Bryce, because we're talking about probably a pretty substantial drop off from him to Bryce at this point in Bryce's career. There's been talks about, well, you could always put Aaron Scott or Devin Sanchez in Jermaine's spot and move Jermaine up. I don't think Jermaine looked good up there either when he was in that. I don't feel like he fits there. At any rate, Lorenzo Styles is extremely important, replacing a guy who was awesome in Jordan Hancock. And that's a role that, it's very, very important on this defense. Well, who knows? That's the other thing. We don't know exactly how the defense is going to look. Patricia, we've heard a lot of talk about, things are going to stay the same. He's going to add his spin. We'll see, man. It always kind of starts like that, but I do think it is crucial that Lorenzo Styles has a really good year, as well as Arvell. Obviously, Arvell has huge shoes to fill. Cody Simon, Mr. Everything. When we look at those 2 linebackers, though, Sonny's going to get better than he was last year. Arvell, we think, will be used a little differently. And that's why it's so important, because I don't think this defense will be as good as it was last year. And I don't think they're talented enough and old enough to just sit back and play base defense and beat you because they're just older and better and more technically sound. So you need to be more disruptive, and you need to have that X factor. And that's Arvell Reese. And I think that's the way Matt Patricia intends to use him a lot. And that's why he's so doggone important. I also think he can win the butt kiss. And he's probably my favorite player on defense. So, of course, he makes my list here. Now, let's go back over to offense. We've got a small quarterback in his first year, inexperienced. And we've got a transfer from Rice starting at left tackle, who we think we know is going to be pretty good. He's huge. He says the right things. But Ethan Anyanwa at left tackle is certainly, it's crucial that this dude has a great year, because if he doesn't, where do you go? Behind him, you've got Phil Daniels and Ian Moore with a combined 4 starts in their career. So it's inexperienced city behind him. It's pretty imperative that Ethan Anyanwa has a great year. In addition to that, at number 9,
Austin Saravel, not just the starting right tackle, most likely, could be the starting right guard, also the next man up at either spot. If he's starting at right tackle, and let's say Tegra isn't playing good enough, or Tegra gets hurt, who's the next guard up? Well, that's Gabe Van Sickle, let's say. Who's the next tackle up? Ian Moore. Who's better at this stage? Ian Moore. All right, well, we're going to take Austin and move him from tackle to guard, and we're going to put Ian Moore at tackle. He's your guy. He's your utility guy. He goes anywhere you need him. And he's really good, and he's the only guy that Ryan Day on that offensive line has said already is going to start, just hasn't told us where yet. Iron Buckeye, leads by example. Incredibly imperative that this dude has a great year. And finally, Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is the best player in football, who I've not shown you yet. If you haven't seen it, he's on the cover of the college football video game with Ryan Williams. And I sent it to my brother, and he said, of course, they don't have them standing up next to each other. I hadn't even thought about it, but he nailed it. Yeah. Jeremiah's crouched down. Ryan Williams is standing up in the back, because that would be embarrassing to stand Ryan Williams next to him. There's another special edition that features Ryan Day and Caleb Downs as well as Jeremiah. Listen, Ohio State's loaded at wide receiver, right? If Jeremiah was on any other team, the drop-off from Jeremiah to the second best or second and third best wide receivers would just be enormous. As it stands at Ohio State, it's still big because he's the best college football wide receiver we've ever seen, maybe. And it's, we're talking about just a loaded wide receiver room. It's still big, but Jeremiah Smith is so good that he has the ability to win games almost single-handedly. And, of course, it's imperative that the best player in college football has a great season. So that's my list of the 10 most crucial seasons, maybe that's how I should have worded it, of the year. Moving right along, obviously Ohio State and Big Noon Kickoff, been a point of contention as Ohio State never getting any big games under the lights at home, other than the Tennessee playoff game, which was amazing because of the Fox Big Noon deal. Now that deal runs through 2029, and we've got good news. We have confirmation on a couple of things here. Number one, the Fox Sports president of Insight and Analytics, Mike Mulhyvel, has come out and confirmed that he was approached with the idea by Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork about moving the Texas game to Sunday night. Mulvihill said that Fox anticipated a minor drop-off if they moved the game to Sunday because Miami and Notre Dame are playing on ABC on Sunday night. But despite that small loss in viewership, Fox was willing to move the game to accommodate, quote, a key partner in Ohio State. However, Texas had to agree, and Texas said no, as we discussed last week. So a couple of things here, and I guess I don't fully understand how these TV contracts work or why Texas had the opportunity to veto this. I suppose maybe that has something to do with actually changing the date from a Saturday. Maybe that's something in the rules that all parties have to agree to. Whatever. That game's not happening. That game will be at noon. But there's a bigger piece of news here. There's some really good news here. And the news is, while Ohio State and Texas will be at noon, this confirms that Ross Bjork and his team were behind the scenes looking for a solution, finding a solution, pitching it to Fox. Fox, despite knowing or believing, or at least publicly saying, that they thought they would have a dip in viewership, were going to accommodate a key partner. And this is what I said when I first brought this up. It shows us a couple things. It shows us Ross Bjork is understanding of the irritation that everybody's having, and he also clearly wants to have night games as well at home. And second, it shows Fox is willing to work with Ohio State when Ohio State has no leverage right now at all. This deal runs to 2029. No leverage whatsoever, but it shows us that they want to be a good partner with Ohio State. They want to be an accommodating partner with Ohio State. They don't want to just, we have all the leverage. You're going to have to do what we say because that's what the contract is. So screw you. They don't want to go back to the negotiating table in 2028 with the most powerful program in the conference, all bitter at them because they did not listen to them and saddled Ohio State with all their big home games at big noon. So it's good news, despite the fact that we're not going to see the Texas game at night. It's really good news moving forward. The SEC is down having their meetings. A lot of news coming out of this. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey really running his mouth at the annual meetings here about the playoff selection. Really wants the guaranteed spots, and he's just kind of trying to muscle public opinion into this, which is not even necessary because they can go ahead and get it anyway, and they will. But basically, he took a shot at Indiana, took a shot at SMU, took a shot at the College Football Playoff Committee. Talking about, you got a team that didn't play anybody at the top of their conference in Indiana and a team in SMU that beat a bunch of 6-6 teams. And teams of ours, two teams of ours that beat Georgia got left out. And he's talking about Ole Miss and Alabama, two teams that were 9-3. Then you got Kalen DeBoer coming out talking about, I wonder what other people would do if they had to play our schedule, which is never a good look, man. Never a good look when a guy comes in year one. This is like record time to adopt the SEC talking points. 1 year, he's already on this. But he's got the commissioner out there fighting the battles, and he's too dumb to just let him do it. He's got to jump in now and make him the target of all the ire. Just a boneheaded move. This is a guy who lost 4 games this year. Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, had no business losing either one of those. Then Tennessee and Michigan. He's officially dopey. He's dopey. But Mike, dude, I almost just said Mike Slive. Mike Slive is the former commissioner from several years ago of the SEC. But Greg Sankey is pounding the table basically for Alabama, Ole Miss, and talking about them winning against Georgia and pretending like strength of schedule didn't play a factor and didn't matter for these SEC teams to the selection committee. What he's failing to say is that it factored in heavily. South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama were all 9-3. Indiana wasn't 9-3. Indiana wasn't 10-2. Indiana was 11-1. Indiana didn't lose any games they weren't supposed to. Consistency is part of being a playoff team. Indiana was ranked behind Tennessee. Tennessee was 10-2. The committee viewed a 10-2 Tennessee team as better than an 11-1 Indiana team. Why? Because the SEC has always, and still does, get an extra game mulligan over everybody else with the selection committee. They always have. To pretend like they don't is just nonsense. Apparently, he wants 2 extra games. Now, these people that want a team to have 3 mulligans just totally disgust me. They want a team to have 3 mulligans to get in the playoffs. Think of Ohio State. Think of Alabama. Think of Georgia. Think of Oregon. Think of the really talented teams in college football. Now, when we look at their schedules ahead of the season, like we often do here in the offseason, we go down the schedule. How many games do they play that you look at and go, okay, that's a tough game? If it's 5, that's a ton, right? If you look at Ohio State's schedule and there's 5 games that you're like, wow, that's a tough game. That's a ton. It's either 3 or 4. Sometimes in our lives, it's only been 2. Now, maybe in another conference, maybe here and there, the SEC, you might have a schedule pop up like Oklahoma's schedule this year, where it's like, wow, man, there's 6 legit tough games on that schedule. But again, Oklahoma is not a great team. If it was Georgia playing that schedule, they'd still be tough games, but it wouldn't be that tough. My point here is, if you want a 3-loss team to get in the playoff, what you're saying is you want a team like Alabama or Ohio State, who may have 5 difficult games for them on the year, to be able to go 2-3 in the big games. And then all they got to do is just win the ones where they're 14 to 41 point favorites. Win those ones, and then you can go 2-3 in the somewhat difficult games, and you're cool. That's what these people are arguing for. Like, you literally just had to be almost perfect to make the playoffs, and already we're at people fighting for teams to go have a losing record in their toughest games to get in the playoffs. It just drives me nuts, man. It just drives me nuts. The SEC still on their nonsense talking points, man. The same old crap. They've been at it for years and years and years. The best part is Big Ten fans actually now have a reason to run their mouths back this time, as they are sitting on top of the conference world. So I'm kind of sitting back and enjoying it. I'm not a conference guy. I just call it like I see it. And the Big Ten certainly sitting on top of the world right now with the last 2 national championships. I was thinking back. I was reading Mark Rogers' book the other day. Mark Rogers wrote a book about the 90s, all the seasons in the 90s. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have a show with Mark. But I was reading his book, and it was just reminding me of 98 and the 98 Buckeyes and how good they were. Well, Michigan wins the national championship in 97. If Ohio State had won the national championship in 98, and then Michigan wins in 23 and Ohio State wins in 24, how crazy would that have been for them to go back to back like that 2 separate times? That would be wild. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. That's all we got for today. Please do like, subscribe to the show, set those alarm bells, 5-star reviews on Apple, man, all that stuff would just make your buddy feel great. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. JUCK out.